I've been interested in reading this book for a long time, but I wanted to wait until at least the third book had a release date. But at this point, that does not seem likely. So I decided that I'd be content with this series being incomplete. I accepted that it would never be finished. So I went ahead and read it, and I liked it, but it also wasn't exactly what I expected it to be. So in this review slash discussion, we'll talk about my expectations versus reality regarding The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. So for those of you who don't know, The Name of the Wind is the biography of a legendary figure called Kvothe. Supposedly after doing whatever the things he had done, he opens an inn and goes into hiding. Then one day a chronicler arrives and Kvothe is like, all right, I'll tell you my life story, but it will take 3 days. So each book is supposed to take 1 day of Kvothe's storytelling. My first expectation was, since the name of the book is The Name of the Wind, I thought the book would be about the name of the wind, but it isn't. A very small portion of the book is about the name of the wind. So there are 2 magic systems in this book. The crappy, boring one is called Sympathy. It's basically linking 2 similar objects to each other and affecting one object using the other. Kind of like a voodoo doll. Like if you have someone's hair and the fire and the person was there and you can somehow link the fire too, then you can basically burn the person a little bit. It's mildly interesting, but nobody does anything remotely remarkable using this magic. I was not interested in it at all, and neither was Kvothe. The interesting magic is the naming magic. So at the beginning of the book, there's this legend where this legendary character who knows the name of everything calls the name of the stone and says break, and the stone obeys. Or calls the name of the wind and jumps, and instead of falling, he glides or something like that. So if you know the name of an object, you can command it. But obviously, it's not just knowing the word itself, it's some sort of connection, and the name sort of comes to you, I think. I don't know, I just assume because the book doesn't talk about it. So don't get excited about that. There is very, very little about the naming magic in this book. What happens in this book then? It starts from Kvothe's childhood, and early on in the book there is one incredibly exciting event. Then it's just Kvothe going to school. And absolutely nothing gets resolved in this book, and you absolutely learn nothing about anything. So don't expect any such thing. You're going to just read about Kvothe's school years, which is not uninteresting, but for me it was always overshadowed by this very interesting event and this very interesting magic system. And unfortunately, these 2 things are a very, very small portion of this book. Now, since the book is all about Kvothe, my second expectation was that Kvothe would be a remarkably interesting character, which is partially true, but mostly he's insufferable. He's the most self-important main character I've ever read. A lot of people are theorizing that he is maybe an unreliable narrator, but honestly, I think this is just the way he is. The most important reason is that he's just too perfect. He can do literally anything. He can learn languages, learn maths, medicine, magic. He's an exceptional performer and lute player. Whatever he does, he's good at it. Nay, great at it. Nay, the best at it. Throughout the whole book, there is not a single person who's better than Kvothe at anything. And don't get me wrong, he works really hard and he goes through a lot of difficult stuff, but man, I really wanted to see one thing he is not good at. Even Superman has flaws and limitations, but not Kvothe. Now, as I was reading this, I was like, all right, he's fantastic. So I'm guessing there will be an antagonist to match him. But no, the antagonist in this book is like a sleazy high school bully. He's just rich and has it in for Kvothe. And what happens between them is the most trivial thing, and it stretches and stretches. But like, he's the most boring person with 0 personality. He's just a bad kid, but most side characters are like that. Nobody has any personality apart from their relationship with Kvothe. He has a few friends, but like, I really have no idea about their personalities. The love interest, oh, the love interest. It's the most toxic love interest I've ever seen. At some point in the book, they go on a long, boring adventure, and I'm like, okay, we're suffering through this, but we need to go through this so their relationship gets established. But nope, every time they're kind of together, either she leaves or Kvothe leaves, and then they run into each other, and the same thing all over again. My biggest disappointment and my most important expectation was the role of music in this book. Everyone was talking about how music played an important part in this story, and Kvothe is a performer and he plays the lute, and him being a performer is an important part of his character, but that's pretty much it. Dramatically, there is no music in the book. There are a couple of important songs, but you never even get the lyrics for those songs. The music is described quite vaguely, so you don't really get a feeling for it. It goes like, yeah, it's a complex harmony, so you imagine what it is. You only get maybe one stanza of lyrics, and I understand the author is not a lyricist, and it's a different craft, but he doesn't even tell you the story of the song. It says something vague like, oh, it's a song of love lost and found and lost again. And I'm like, okay. And here's the worst thing. This is actually a writing device for this book. This is completely intentional. I've seen the author defended. There are like 2 pages where Kvothe is defending why he can't describe how pretty this one girl is. This book leans heavily on tell, don't show. It just tells you how you're supposed to feel, and it doesn't really give you anything visceral. And I understand it works for a lot of people, but did not work for me. And the problem is I actually liked the book, and I was really interested in the things that seemed important in the beginning. The book makes a big deal of certain things in the beginning, and when you do those things, you make a certain promise to the reader, then it doesn't deliver any of those things. And I watched many interviews and panels of Patrick Rothfuss to sort of figure out some answers to understand why this was so, but here's the thing. You can't learn anything from him because he doesn't answer any questions. None at all. I mean, I don't mean like in a grumpy way. Well, I guess sometimes he is mean to his fans, but I understand to a degree that everyone keeps asking him about the 3rd book, and his whole interaction with people turns into that. But also if he just gave an update once a year saying, I wrote a few chapters, I liked some, didn't like some, but it's coming together, or anything really, I believe it would be much different. But anyway, generally in panels and interviews, he's fun and interesting and friendly and everything, and it's fun to watch his panels, but he just does not answer questions. He only speaks in tangents and keeps losing track of what the question was and talks about something else for 20 minutes. I mean, after watching those, I was like, okay, now I understand why it's been 10 years since the last book. And here's some baseless speculation for you. Listen, I wouldn't do baseless speculations if the author answered some questions, but here we are. Here's what I think. I actually do believe he will write the next book, but I don't believe it will be the last book. I think he will go like, oh, I've been trying to cram everything into one book. That's why it's been taking me so long. But when I realized it was going to be 2 more books, it all made sense. And on the 3rd book, we won't get anything remarkable again. And the 4th book will maybe come in another decade and maybe won't. Another reason why 4 books make sense is because the current events are still continuing. Even after Kvothe finishes telling how he came to be where he is now, there is still the question of, now what? To really conclude the story, we need to take care of the current situation too, and that's just going to be another book. There. That's my baseless, random speculation, which is probably wrong, but we'll see. I mean, I talk so much shit about this book, but I did give it 4 stars, alright? I actually enjoyed the book. It's really well written. The pacing is incredible. I just couldn't put it down. But like, it was the anticipation of, oh, okay, now we're getting to the important bit, but it never really comes. I read some reviews of the 2nd book, and it looks like it will be the same way. I mean, I get it. One main idea that's going on in this book is that the legends are exaggerated. What really happens is something far less intriguing. We hear all these legends about Kvothe, but then he tells the events himself, and it's not like that at all. It's just gossip exaggerating what actually happened, and he starts some gossip himself too for his reputation. This is a very important idea in this book, and I understand why things that actually happen look trivial. So I'm assuming the more complicated plot points might also end up being not as complicated as we thought they would be, which is understandable considering the theme, but also disappointing. But that's it from me. I want to know if you read this book and what you thought about it. Have you read it over 10 years ago and been waiting? Have you just picked it up like me? Let me know in the comments. Also, if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like to let me know. And if you'd like to see more book reviews from me, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.